Frustration-aggression theory. Frustration-aggression hypothesis, otherwise known as the frustration-aggression displacement theory, is a theory of aggression proposed by John Dollard Neil E. Miller in 1939 and further developed by Miller in 1941 and Leonard Berkowitz in 1969. The theory says that aggression is the result of blocking or frustrating a person's effort to attain a goal. Example, the frustration-aggression hypothesis attempts to explain why people scapegoat. It attempts to give an explanation as to the cause of violence. The theory developed by John Dollard and colleagues says that frustration causes aggression, but when the source of the frustration cannot be challenged, the aggression gets displaced into an innocent target. There are many examples of this. If a man is disrespected and humiliated at his work but cannot respond to his for fear of losing his job, he may go home and take his anger and frustration out on his family. This theory is also used to explain riots and revolutions. Both are caused by poor and more deprived sections of society who may express their bottled-up frustration and anger through violence. According to Yale Group, frustration is the condition which exists when a goal response suffers in interference, while aggression is defined as an act whose goal response is injury to an organism or organism surrogate. However, aggression is not always the response to frustration. Rather, a substitute response is displayed when aggressive response is not the strongest in hierarchy. Furthermore, this theory raises the questions if aggression is innate. However, this theory has some problems. First, there is a little empirical support for it, even though researchers have studied it for more than 60 years. Another issue is that this theory suggests frustrated, prejudiced individuals should act more aggressively towards outgroups they are prejudiced against. But studies have shown that they are more aggressive towards everyone. The theory also has limitations. For example, it cannot say why some outgroups are chosen to be scapegoats and why others are not. Experimentation. The frustration-aggression theory has been studied since 1939, and there have been modifications. Dell and Anderson present a study that questions whether frustration that is justified or not plays a role in the future aggression. The experiment consisted of 3 groups of subjects performing a folding origami task that was timed. The participants were split into the control, justified frustration, and unjustified frustration groups. Controlled frustration refers to the ability to manage and regulate feelings of frustration in a constructive and intentional manner, while frustration is a natural emotional response to obstacles and unmet goals. Individuals with the capacity for controlled frustration can navigate these challenges without resorting to destructive or aggressive behaviors. Justified frustration refers to feelings of frustration that are reasonable, understandable, or warranted given the circumstances. In other words, there is a valid or legitimate reason for experiencing frustration based on a situation at hand. This type of frustration typically arises when individuals encounter obstacles, challenges, or injustices that impede their progress or well-being. Lastly, unjustified frustration refers to feelings of frustration that lack a reasonable or legitimate basis given the circumstances. In these situations, individuals may be experiencing frustration without a clear or valid case or cause, or the response may be disproportionate to the actual challenges they face. Unjustified frustration can arise from misinterpretations, unrealistic expectations, or emotional reactions that are not in proportion to the situation. In each condition, the experimenter states how they will only present the instructions one time and then start the timer. At a predetermined fold, the confederate in the condition interrupts the experimenter and asks them to please slow down. In the unjustified group, the experimenter responds, "I cannot slow down. My girlfriend or boyfriend is picking me up after this, and I do not want to make them wait." In the justified condition, the experimenter responds, "I cannot slow down. My supervisor booked this room for another project afterwards and we must continue. Finally, the experimenter in the control condition responded, "Oh, okay, I did not realize I was going too quickly. I will slow down." The subjects were then given questionnaires aggression as well as questionnaires about the quality of the research staff. They were told that these questionnaires would determine whether the research staff would receive financial aid or verbal reprimands and a reduction in financial rewards. The questions presented on the questionnaire were designed to reflect the research staff's ability and likability. Dill and Anderson found that participants in the unjustified frustration group rated the research staff to have less ability and likability, knowing this would affect their financial situation as about more graduate students. The justified frustration group rated the staff as less likable and having less ability than the control group, and that of the unjustified frustration group. These results support the hypothesis that frustration can lead to aggression. This study presents data concerning behavioral aggression and frustration level. Frustration is defined as a state that sets in if a goal-oriented act is delayed or thwarted. This instigation remains even though the chances of realizations are constrained by interfering influences. Under these frustrating conditions, aggressive behavior is stimulated to an extent that corresponds with the intensity of the instigation and a degree of blockage of goal attainment. Aggression is defined as the deliberate violation of an organism or an organism substitute. It is primarily directed toward the cause of frustration, but may be redirected toward any other people or objects. The inhibition of aggressive behavior represents in itself a factor of frustration and can reinforce aggressive tendencies. In its first general definition, the frustration-aggression theory or hypothesis, hence frustration-aggression hypothesis, proposes that aggression is always the result of frustration. Gallard, 1939. This corresponds with the following two postulates. 1. Aggressive behavior requires the existence of frustration. The relationship between frustration and aggressive behavior is a key concept in psychology, often associated with the frustration-aggression hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that frustration is a significant factor in the development of aggressive behavior. According to this theory, when individuals are blocked or thwarted in their efforts to achieve a goal, they may experience frustration, and this frustration can lead to aggressive responses. And 2. The existence of frustrations leads to some kind of aggressive behavior. The frustration-aggression hypothesis posits that the presence of frustration often increases the likelihood of aggressive behavior. However, it's essential to understand that not all frustration automatically results in aggression, and the relationship is more nuanced. So nuanced means complex, subtle, or delicate in nature. Manifest aggression reduces aggressive tendencies and results in catharsis. So, what exactly is a catharsis? In psychology, catharsis is associated with the idea that expressing or releasing emotions, especially negative ones, can have a therapeutic effect. The belief is that by venting or releasing emotions, an individual can experience a sense of relief, emotional release, and psychological renewal. Traditionally, there was a belief in the concept of catharsis, suggesting that expressing aggression can serve as a release and reduce aggressive tendencies. However, research has challenged this idea, suggesting that aggressive expression might actually reinforce aggressive behavior. However, this only applies to that part of aggression caused by inhibition of aggression, not to aggression caused by the original instigation. The latter lasts as long as the frustrating conditions continue. This concept aligns with the idea that attempting to suppress aggressive urges without addressing the underlying causes may lead to a rebound effect. where the suppressed aggression surfaces in a more intense or expected manner.
Frustration aggression theory. The frustration aggression theory states the aggression is caused by frustration. When someone is prevented from reaching their important goals or satisfying one important needs, they become frustrated. This frustration turns into aggression when the right trigger is prevented. For example, if you fail in your final exam, you will definitely become frustrated. But if someone you barely know told you you're such a loser not to pass the exam, in that case, your stored frustration surely turns into aggression. Not that the frustration aggression theory does not provide explanation to all types of aggression, but it's rather focused on the aggression, those result from being able to reach your goal. Here's another example to make the theory clearly. Let's suppose that you face a certain problem in your work, and as a result, you got very frustrated. Now, in such a case, you might find yourself become more aggressive towards other drivers in the street while you are on your way home. In such a case, your suppressed frustrated turn into aggression as soon as you got subjected to the stress of driving. The frustration aggression theory argues that social movement occurs when frustration leads to collect, often aggression behavior. Frustration have a variety of source and can make two forms. The first is it can be absolute, which happens when people do not have enough to survive. And the second is it can be relative, which happen when people have enough to survive and have less than those around them. The idea that frustration can stem from absolute deprivation, lack of basic needs for survival, and relative deprivation, perceived unequal compares to others, is indeed relevant to understanding social movement. Social movement often emerge when group of people feel dissatisfied with their current circumstances. Whenever due to absolute or relative deprivation and seek to address perceived injustice and inequities. In summary, while the frustration aggression hypothesis focus on individual response to frustration, the broader concept of frustration leading to collect and action social movements involve a more complex interplay or socio-political, economic, and psychological factors. Your hurriedly type of research paper in your school library that's due in 30 minutes. You panic and stress that you will not finish it in time. You complete the task 10 minutes before your class started. A sense of relief overcomes you. You're clipped and wait by the printers while giving you a mental high five. Yet, the printer's the only one in the library. Beep, signaling malfunction. It seems there is a major paper jam. A feeling of extreme frustration overcomes you. So, frustration is a feeling of irritation and annoying when someone blocks you from achieving a goal. In the previous scenario, your goal of turning in your research paper on time is being hindered by the printer's malfunction. You throw your backpack down in exasperation and proceed to kick it several times. This is an example of frustration turns into aggression. Aggression is a malicious behavior or attitude towards someone or something, usually triggered by frustration. As notes of the definition of aggression, frustration doesn't have to be a behavior. It can be an attitude. For example, a dog is trying to protect its family home may feel threatened by the male person and will bark firstly whenever he or she become around. This aggression in the form of an attitudes or outlooks. The dog barks it malicious. It is desired to hurt the male person if he or she comes any closer. Now that we have a definition of frustration and aggression down part. The definition of frustration aggression theory may seem obvious. The frustration aggression theory largely implies that aggression is often a result of frustration. This theory was proposed by psychologists Dollard, Miller, Maurer, and Sir in their 1939 books Frustration and Aggression. Frustration aggression principle. Let's now turn into example of writing a research paper. You write one page of 20 pages research paper. The computer crash and you lose all of your works. Now imagine you write 15 page a 20 page research paper and your computer crash and all of your works is gone. In which case, would you become more frustrated after writing 15 page of course? The closer that a person is to goal that suddenly blank, the more frustrated he or she will become. Another example is waiting in a line of rides. If you wait in a line for an hour on a roller coaster and someone skip you in the line, you will become frustrated. That same person skip when you only wait for a minute. However, not everyone who gets frustrated is aggressive. It those who feel a lessening or frustration when the aggressive that will often be repeated aggressor. Imagine a road range scenario. Mark is hurry and become very frustrated and angry when the car in front of him failed to accelerate when the lights turned green. He veered his car to the left and passed the car with his window and while shouting obscenities. Although an aggressive manner to handle things, it made him feel better. Berkowitz revision. Social psychologist Leonardo Berkowitz believed there was more to the frustration aggression principle. In 1989, he published an academic journal article titled Frustration Aggression Hypothesis. Examination and reformulation. Berkowitz notes that frustration didn't always lead to aggression behavior, and aggression was increased in response to frustration when there were environmental cues that triggered it. description. When people perceive that they are being prevented from achieving a goal, their frustration is likely turns into aggression. The closer you get to the goal, the greater excitement and expectation of the pleasure. Thus, the closer you are, the more frustrated I get by being held by expected occurrence of the frustration also increase the likelihood of aggression. Frustration does not always lead to aggression, particularly when deliberate suppress it become either we know that it is wrong or we fear that social consequences of being aggressive. As a result, we often displace aggression into other activities such as sports, driving fast, or so on. Some people are more disposed to aggression and find it harder to contain it. For such people, frustration is more likely to that lead directly to aggression. That for other people with a calmer disposition or greater self-control. So, for example, football. Crowd can become aggressive. Their team starts to lose. People in business can also become aggressive when others start to frustrate their ambition.
Inferiority complex and Alfred Adler's theory. According to Alfred Adler, who was the first one to coin the term inferiority complex, every child experiences the feeling of inferiority as the result of being surrounded by stronger and more capable adults. The child grows, he becomes obsessed by his original feelings of inferiority he experienced earlier, and so he strives for power and recognition. If the child failed to meet certain life challenges during his act of compensation, then he will develop an inferiority complex. So, according to Adler, every child feels inferior, but not everyone develops an inferiority complex, which only affect those who fail to compensate correctly. An inferiority complex in a child may manifest in various ways, affecting their self-esteem and overall well-being. Here's an example scenario. Imagine a 10-year-old named Alex who constantly compares themselves to their classmates. Alex struggles with academics and finds it challenging to grasp a certain concepts. When the teacher assigns a group project, Alex is hesitant to contribute ideas and often feels overshadowed by more academically successful peers. So, according to Adler, every child feels inferiority, but not everyone an inferiority complex, which only affect those who fail to compensate correctly, as I said earlier. And inferiority complex is a lack of self-worth, a doubt and uncertainty about oneself, and feelings of not measuring up to standards. It is often subconscious, and it's not to drive afflicate individuals to overcompensate, resulting either in spectacular achievement or extremely asocial behavior. In modern literature, the preferred terminology is lack of covert self-esteem. For many, it is developed through a combination of genetic personality characteristic and personal experiences. Classical ed Adlerian psychology makes a distinction between primary and secondary inferiority feelings. A primary inferiority feeling is said to be rooted in the young child's original experience of weakness, helplessness, and dependency. It can be intensified by comparisons to siblings, romantic partners, and adults. Imagine a preschooler named Lily who has an older sibling, Jake, known for excelling in various activities such as sports and academics. Lily, despite her own unique talents and abilities, constantly measured herself against her brother's achievements. She may feel that she never as fast, as smart, or as talented as Jake. A secondary inferiority feeling relates to an adult's experience of being unable to reach a subconscious, reassuring fictional final goal of subjective security and success would lead to negative or distressed feeling that could then prompt the recall of the original inferiority feeling. This composite of inferiority feelings could be experienced as overwhelming. The reassuring goal invented to relieve the original primary feeling of inferiority, which actually causes the secondary feeling of inferiority, is the catch-22 of this dilemma, where the desperate attempt to obtain therapeutic assurance and delivery from a distressing feeling of inferiority and worthlessness repeatedly fails. This vicious cycle is common in neurotic lifestyle. Consider a teenager named Max who during high school becomes increasingly aware of societal expectations and cultural norms. Max is passionate about the arts and dreams of becoming a professional musician. However, he noticed that his peers, influenced by social pressures prioritize careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Max may start questioning his abilities and the worthiness of his artistic pursuit, potentially affecting his self-esteem and motivation. These second inferiority feelings can influence his decision-making, causing him to consider abandoning his artistic dreams in favor of a more socially accepted career. An inferiority complex occurs when the feelings of inferiority are intensified in the individual through discouragement or failure. Those who are not risk for developing a complex include people who show signs of low self-esteem or self-worth, have low socioeconomic status, or have a story of depression symptoms. Children reared in households where they were constantly certified or did not live up to parents' expectation may also develop an inferiority complex. Many times, there are warning signs to someone who may be more prone to developing an inferiority complex. For example, someone who is prone to attention and approval-seeking behaviors may be more susceptible An inferiority complex is a term used to describe intense feelings of inadequacy, often accompanied by belief that one is inherently less capable or valuable than others. According to classical Adlerian physiology, the second inferiority feelings result when the adults feel inadequate from desires to achieve an unobtainable or unrealistic result. The need for perfection, stress associated with feelings of failure and inferiority, cause a pessimistic attitude, and an inability to overcome difficulties in life. According to Adler, everyone has a feeling inferiority, but the feeling of inferiority is not a disease. It is rather a stimulant to healthy.
Delinquents of Culture Theory. Walter Miller published an article in a journal called Lower Class Culture as a Generating Milieu of Gang Delinquency. In this article, he displayed the lower class focal concerns, which include 6 of the following: trouble, toughness, smartness, excitement, faith, and autonomy. Trouble, as he states about lower class communities, is evaluated by how much a person creates it. Getting into trouble, as we all know it, is pretty much breaking the law, such as fighting. What this does is create an image for that one subject. So if the subject gets into a fight and wins, his reputation is therefore increased. People will start recognizing him and won't try to fight the subject. On the other spectrum, not being able to fight, our subject will have the appearance of a wimp and therefore be treated with little or no respect. Toughness can explain itself. It's basically how our subject would want to increase this physical and spiritual strength so that they would not be able to be labeled as weak. Smartness is this world is street smart. What subject would want is to be able to make money and survive in this street without consequences. The most important is, of course, how to outsmart the authorities or the law. Excitement is the next on the list and explains how our subject needs to find an activity that is out of the norms from these day-to-day activities. These activities could range anywhere from fighting to sexual adventures. Faith depicts that people belonging to the lower class believe that their lives are controlled by a great spiritual force. Last but not least, we have autonomy. This pertains to our subject being independent, which is actually a requirement and usually leads to gang involvement. In an article titled "The Delinquents of Culture and Alternative Formulation" states that there are many difficulties associated with the reaction formation stated in the theory. It assumes that delinquent boy strongly values middle class status or that delinquent boy is not oriented to status in the middle class system. So the questions that comes to mind is how this subject turns to delinquency. Keep in mind, the society leads adolescents act like adults but not actually be one on their day-to-day activities. Kitsusi and Dietrich states that it is because of this impatience from being an adolescent with wanting to be an adult that causes the turn of event to delinquency. The idea that impatience and desire to accelerate the transition from adolescence to adulthood can contribute to delinquency is a concept associated with a certain sociological perspective, and it aligns with the aspects of strain theory and subculture theory. Let's have a scenario. High school peer pressure and impatience. Emily is a 16-year-old high school student who has always felt restricted by the rules imposed on teenagers. She often experienced impatience with the limitation placed on her and her peers. Emily's impatience stems from her desires to experience more freedom and autonomy, similar to what she perceived adults to have. They have stated that it is easier for an adolescent from the working class to be more restrained to this behavior than working class adolescents. Compared to the middle class adolescents, the working class adolescents is socialized earlier, so they are more eager to reap rewards that adults get. As a result, the delinquent subculture in this view is response to the social structure disjunction between the goal of the adult's status and means by which it is to be achieved. Kitsusi and Ditri also note that Cohen had missed some important points in this theory. Cohen does not present adequate support either in the theory or in fact for his explanation of the delinquent subculture. The methodological basis of the theory renders it inherently untestable. The theory and ambiguous concerning the relation between the emerge of the subculture and its maintenance. And the theory should include an explanation of the persistence of the subculture if it is to meet an adequate test. As a result of their empirical research, Kitsusi Dietrich found a very interesting point. They questioned the existence of subculture and when it first came out. Where was it created? Also among all the males who are in the working class who would fit into this subculture. They also state that when this subculture emerged, there needs to be some sort of historical data, as they clearly put it. It is not that the working class boy is ambivalent about middle class values. The theory requires only that at some time when the delinquent subculture emerged, the working class boy was ambivalent about middle class value. There are also other problems concerning the research done on Cohen's theory. Methodologically, the historical method relies upon data concerning the psychological dynamics of a population which are difficult, not impossible to obtain. Next are 2 points concerning the emergence of the delinquent subculture. The emergence of the delinquent subculture is considered either independent of the motivational dynamics necessary for the maintenance of the subculture, or dependent upon in some unspecified relationship. In a book called Delinquent Solution, a study in subculture theory, David Donis notices as a couple of flaws with the theory. One of the more important one is that there is not one but more subculture both within and outside the dominant culture. And in each of this subculture, there are either positive forces or negative ones. When David compared two different societies, such as America and England, he noticed that England had little or organized crime. The working class was supported, and that unemployed within youth was very low. There was a study made between two cities known for their working class in England. The conclusion to this study was that there were adolescents that were part of groups, but they did not label themselves as gangs. And although loud, they had no intent of being violent. The result in finding that there was no criminal subculture, as David puts it. Even more striking was the non-existence of conflict subculture attributed to London, which, when compared to America, metropolitan communities had a different ecological density, an absence of significant concentration of minority group members, and the high employability of adolescents. So status frustration had nothing to do with delinquency. What it have to do is with dissociation from middle class dominated school, occupations, and recreation.
Rational choice theory and its assumption about human behavior has been integrated into numerous criminal social theories and human justice intervention. Rational choice theory originated during late 18th century with the work of Cesar Beccaria. Since then, the theory has been expanded upon extended to include other perspectives such as deterrence, institutional crime prevention. Rational choice theory, in other words, it is an act of bringing together numerous criminological theories and criminal justice intervention to form a single functional unit. Since then, this theory was expanded and extended, or in simple words, enlarged. The theory included these three perspectives: deterrence, the theory that criminal penalties do not just punish violator but also discourage other people from committing similar offense. Situational crime prevention. The settings where crime occur rather than on those committing specific criminal act. Routine activity theory. Look at crime from an offender point of view. Routine activity theory. The versatile choice perspective has been applied to a wide range of crime, including robbery, drug use, vandalism, and white-collar crime. Rational choice theories report that a person will commit crime after determining if the pain or punishment is worth the pleasure of reward of the act. This comes from the classical and neoclassical school. Rational choice theory. It purports or its claim that a person determines first if the punishment or the pain is worth the pleasure or reward before committing the crime or an act. The theory is related to earlier drift theory. David Matsalik, Delinquency and Drift, 1964, where people use the technique of neutralization to drift in out of delinquent behavior. In a systematic crime theory, an aspect of social disorganization theory developed by the Chicago School, where Edwin Scatterland proposed that the failure of families and extended kin group expand the relation no longer controlled by the committee and undermines governmental control. This led to persistent systematic crime and delinquency. He also believed that such disorganization caused and reinforced the cultural tradition and cultural conflict that support antisocial activity, delinquency, and drift. If an opportunity is provided for a youth to take action or circumstance, it is in favor for him to act. He take the initiative on his own according to commit a crime. The systematic quality of the behavior was reference to repetitive pattern or organized offending as opposed to a random event. He depicted the law abiding culture as dominant, as more extensive than alternative. Criminogenic cultural views and capable of overcoming systematic crime. It's organized for that purpose. Systematic crime theory is where the family or the kind group give influence to persistent systematic crime and delinquency. In a similar vein, Cohen and Pelso, 1979, developed routine activities theory, which focus on the characteristic of crime rather than the characteristic of the offender. This is one of the main choices of environmental criminality, an aspect of crime prevention theory. It states that for a crime to occur, their elements must be present. Routine activity theory focus on the characteristic of crime, which is criminal act, an action or omission that is prescribed by law and may be punished by a state criminal extent. The result of determination with which a person act commit crime. Concurrent trends of the two occur when there is an intention to commit the crime and voluntary criminal action known as actus reus and mens rea, respectively. As such, it's dependent upon the state of mind in the guilty act siding rather than the characteristic of the offender. there must be an available suitable regrets, a motivated offender, and no authority figure to prevent the crime from happening. Crime prevention theory. For a crime for a crime to happen, the element must be present. An available and suitable target. There must be a target for an offender to commit a crime. A motivated offender. There should be an offender to commit a crime. No authority figure to prevent the crime from happening. No police or possible security figure to prevent the crime from happening.
There are many theories about what caused people to continue to commit, and this is for committing crimes. Corbin study and Cron 2009. Some of these theories are said that crimes due is a collection of personality traits, trials that influence a person to commit crime. Wilson Bernstein, 1985. Some scholars argue that crimes occurs when people are led by their culture to want something such as monetary success, but are denied access to means to achieve these things. Agnew, 1992. And still others claim that crime occurs when people get socialized into cultures, subcultures, or groups that either actively promote or less openly tolerate criminal behavior. Nibsley Cohen, 1996. Collection of personality of trials. The personality or the related behavior, cognitive and emotional patterns, biological and environmental factors influence on the person to commit crime. Rational choice theory is an approach used by social scientists to understand human behavior. This approach has long been domain pardon in economics, but in recent decades it has been more widely used in other disciplines. It is basically on how incentive that constraint affect behavior. Rational choice their theory is based on several assumptions. One of those, individualism, is focused on individual behavior. Individualism is focused on individual behavior, on how they behave. The second assumption is that individuals have to minimize their goals, and the third assumption is that the individuals are self-interested. According to Nobel Prize winning economics Gary Baker's Landmark in 1968 paper, rational choice theory is used in both criminal and non-criminal behavior. It involves intentional committing some act because the reward gained from that act will be greater than risks associated with. This theory roles as factors as biological, physiological, and environmental factors that may convince someone to commit a crime. Instead, in ourselves, that criminals make a choice to commit a crime. After weighing the cost, they also will consider the benefit of non-committing the crime, but ultimately determine that the reward of the crime are greater than benefit of the committing the crime. Many features of rational choice perspective make it particularly stung to serve as criminological meta theory with broad role in the explanation for the variety of criminological phenomena. Since rational choice can be explain many different components is the broad enough to be applied not only crime but every day in life circumstance. Study involved offenders being interviewed on motives, method, and target choice. Researcher involves Bulgari washing in 1980, murder in 1982, in 1991, bank and commercial robberies, New South Wales Bureau of Crime Statistics and Research, 1987, Nagli, 1989, and offenders using violent Morrison and Odan Donnell, 1996. The rational choice perspective has provided a framework under which to organize such information so that individual study produce marginal benefits. Rational theory insists that crime calculated and deliberate. All criminals are rational actors who practice conscious decision making. The similarities works towards gain the maximum benefit of their present situation. Another aspect of rational choice theory is that many offenders make decisions based on boundary rational limit. Ideas of limited rational emphasize that extent to which individuals or groups simplify a decision because of the difficulties for anticipating or considering all alternatives and all information bounded in rational related in two aspects. One of the arising from cognitive limitation and the other one from extremely in emotionally arousal. Sometimes emotional arousal at the moment of crime can be acute, therefore will be offenders find themselves out of control and rational consideration and far less boundary limited rational. An individual of a group of offenders simplify the decision because of the difficulties and anticipating consider all alternative information. It's two related topic aspect. Cognitive limitation, limited skills related to planning, decision making, and copying. Emotional arousal, the offenders find themselves out of control and rational consideration are less silent or less noticeable. Crime therefore can be influenced by opportunity. Opportunity of crime can be related to cost, benefit, socio-economic status, risk detection, depend on situational context, type of offense, and access to external benefits. In additional opportunity and dependent on the individual's current surroundings and the causing factors. This theory better explains instrument crime rather than expressive crime. Instrument crime involved planning and weighing the risk with a rational mind. An example of instrument crime can be tax evasion, traffic violation, drinking and driving, corporate crime, luxury, and social assault. On the other hand, expressive crime include crimes involving emotional and lack of rational thinking without being concrete on future consequences. Expressive crime can include non-premeditated murders such as manslaughter and assault as a result of punishment is only effectively in determining instrumental crime rather than expressive crime. Crime therefore can be influenced by opportunity. Opportunity of a crime can be related to the cost of benefits, a way to compare the cost of benefits of intervention where both are expressed in monetary units. Socioeconomic status, a complex concept that involves education, income, overall finance and security, occupation, living condition, resources, and opportunity offered to the people within society. Depend on situational context, depend on the speaker and listener, share physically some common knowledge in their present communication, types of offense, and access to external benefits. Opportunity and dependent on the individual's current surroundings and causing factors. Instrument crime involves in planning and weighing the risk with the rational mind. Example of tax evasion: the illegal non-paying for underpayment of tax, usually deliberately making a false declaration or non-declaration to tax authorities. Traffic violation: an act of that violators that traffic laws or the concern of state and country. Drinking and driving: drive a vehicle while under influence of alcohol. Corporate crime: crime committed by individuals on behalf of a business. Lancing the trespass, talking and crying away of personal goods from the possession of another within intent and to steal. Sexual assault: when someone either touch another person in a sexual manner without consent or makes another person to touch them in a sexual manner without consent. Expressive crime: crimes involving emotion and lack of rational thinking without being concerned of future consequences. Expressive crimes include non-premeditated murders, manslaughter, the crime of killing human being without malice aforethought or otherwise in circumstances not amounting to murder. Assault, the crime or torturing or attempting to conflict immediately offense physical contact or bodily harm that one has present ability to conflict and puts the victim in fear, harm to contact, compare battery. In 2000, O'Gary performed a study which exampled the illegal sale of tobacco products, the underage youth with the use of rational mind, merchants and clerks out of the cost of benefits and risk factors which involved in selling cigarettes to underage youth due to minimal risk of police patrol after 5 p.m. Merchants and clerks diminished sense of risk, therefore allowing them to sell their product illegally to youth under. According to Ogar, 2001, there are three main critics of rational choice theory include assuming that all individuals have the capacity to make rational decisions. The theory does not explain why being responsible is excused from young offenders as opposed to adult offenders. This theory contradicts the Canadian criminal justice system. This theory does not support the idea that all individuals are rational actors because the cognitive ability example of individuals of lack of rational mind include those who are not criminally responsible on amount due on the mental disorder.
Criminology, rational choice theory adopts a utilitarian that man is a reasoning actor who weighs means and ends, costs and benefits, and makes a rational choice. This method was designed by Cornish and Clark to assist in thinking about situational crime prevention. It has shown that crime is purposive behavior designed to meet the offender's
commonplace needs for such things as money, status, sex, and excitement, and that meeting these needs involves the making of decisions and choices, constraints as there are by limits, ability, and the availability of relevant information. The statement Crim is proposing suggests that criminal actions are intentional and forceful, meaning that individuals engage in criminal behavior with a goal or objective in mind. This perspective is consistent with the idea that criminal action are intentional and forceful, meaning that individuals engage in criminal behavior with goal or objective in mind. This perspective is consistent with the idea that criminal actions are not random or accidental but are driven by motivations, desires, or perceived benefits. People generally act in their self-interest and make decisions to commit crime after weighing the potential risk, including getting caught and punished against the rewards. Rational choice is an economic principle that states that individuals always make prudent and logical decisions. These decisions provide people with the greatest benefit or satisfaction, given the choices available, and are also in their high self-interest. Most mainstream academic assumptions and theories are based on rational choice theory. Rational choice theory assumes that all people try to actively maximize their advantage in any situation, therefore consistently try to maximize their losses. The theory is based on the idea that all humans base their decisions on rational calculations, act with rationality when choosing, aim to increase in either pleasure or profit. Rational choice theory also stipulates that all complex and social phenomena are driven by individual human actions. Therefore, if an economist wants to explain social change or the actions of social institutions, he needs to look at the rational choice decisions of the individual that make up the whole. Rational choice theory. Choice theory is the belief that individuals choose to commit a crime looking at the opportunities before them, weighing the benefit versus the punishment, and deciding whether to proceed or not. This cost-benefit analysis primarily focuses on the idea that we all have the choices to proceed with our actions. Because of the punishment involved, we are deterred from committing the crime. The decision-making process involves a cost-benefit analysis, where individuals assess the advantages and disadvantages of their options before making a rational choice. Choice theory. Choice theory posits that behaviors we choose are central to our existence. Our behavior choices are driven by 5 genetically driven needs: survival, love, belonging, freedom, fun, and power. Survival needs include food, clothing, shelter, personal safety, security, and sex, having children, and for fundamental psychological needs: belonging, connecting, love. Second, power, significance, competence. Third, freedom, autonomy. And the last one, fun and learning. Choice theory suggests that existence of a quality word. Glaser's idea of a quality word states that common idea of archetypes, but Glaser's never acknowledged this. Nonetheless, Glaser's quality word and what language can call archetypes are indistinguishable. The quality word images can be seen as mental pictures or representations of people, situations, and experiences that individuals value and desire. These images serve as a guide for decision making and behavior, influencing the choices individual make to bring them closer to their perceived ideal world. Our quality world images are role models of individuals, perfect world appearance, relations, positions, beliefs, etc. How person's quality world is somewhat unusual, even in the same family of origin, is taken for granted. Starting from birth and continuing throughout our lives, each person places significant role models, significant positions, and significant systems of belief, religion, cultural values, and icons. Into mostly unconscious framework, Glazers called our quality world glazer mostly ignores the issues of negative role models stereotypes in the choice theory.
Glazers also possess a comparing places. Balik bro. Glazers also possess a comparing place where we contrast our perception of people, places, and things immediately in front of us against our ideal images or archetypes of this in our quality world framework. Our subconscious pushes us toward celebrating as best we can our real world experience with our quality world. So, in choice theory, Glazers emphasize that individuals have a quality world, a personal mental pictures of what they want and value in life. People make choices and behave in ways that believe will bring them closer to their quality world. The comparing places is not a specific term used by Glazers, but it might be related to the idea that individuals constantly compare their current reality with their idealized quality world. Behavior or total behavior in Glazers terms is made up of these four components: acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology. Glazers suggests we have considerable control or choice over the first two of these, yet little ability to directly choose the latter two as they are more deeply sub and unconscious. These four components remain closely intertwined. The choices we make in our thinking and acting greatly affect of our feeling and physiology. In William Glazer's choice theory, the concept of total behavior is a central idea that encompasses the interconnected components of behavior. Glazer's purposes that behavior is not just limited to action or observable behaviors but includes four interrelated components. Acting or behavior, this component refers to observable behaviors or actions. It includes what individuals do physically. Thinking or cognition. Thinking encompasses the mental process and thoughts that individuals have. Glazers emphasize that thoughts are a crucial part of behavior. Feeling or emotion. Feeling involved that emotional component or behavior. Glazers recognizes that the importance of emotion and their influence on behavior. Physiology or bodily reaction. Physiology refers to the physiological or biological reactions that accompany behavior, that includes changes in bodily functions such as heart rate, breathing, and muscle tension. A big of Glazers, one of the repeat often is the much personal, and happiness is feeling or felt relationship with people to us, spouses, parents, children, and colleagues. The symptoms of unhappiness are widely variable, are often seen as mental illness. Glazers believe that pleasure and happiness is related but is far from synonymous. 6, for example, is a pleasure but may well be divorced from a satisfactory relationship, which is a precondition of lasting happiness in life. Hence, the intense focus on the improvement of relationship is counseling with choice theory, the new reality therapy. Those familiar with both are likely to prefer choice theory. the more modern formulation. Choice theory possesses most mental illness as, in fact, an expression of happiness. Glasses champions how we are able to learn and choose alternate behaviors resulting in greater personal satisfaction. So reality therapy is a choice theory-based counseling process focused on helping clients to learn to make those self-optimizing choices. So the 10 axioms. So the 10 axioms. 1. The only person whose behavior we can control is our own. 2. All we can give another person is information. 3. A long-lasting physiological problems are relationship problems. 4. The problem relationship is always part of our present life. 5. What happened in the past has everything to do with what we are today, but we can only satisfy our basic needs right now and plan to continue satisfying them in our future. 6. We can only satisfy our needs by satisfying the pictures in our quality world. And 7. All we do is behaving. 8. All behavior is made up of 4 components: acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology. All total behavior is chosen, but we only have direct control. 9. All total behavior is chosen, but we only have direct control over the acting and thinking components. We can only control our feelings and physiology indirectly through how we choose to act and think. And lastly, 10. A total behavior is designated by verbs and named by the part that is the most recognized.